Triads are the foundation of harmony in Western music, and when you're fluent in them, it unlocks a world of possibilities. In this video, I'll be breaking down triads and teaching you how to build them. I'll be doing this on the piano, but it's applicable to all instruments. So triads are chords with 3 notes, hence the tri. And these 3 notes are separated by different musical intervals. So in modern Western music, we use a tuning system called 12-tet, or 12-tone equal temperament. And in this tuning system, the smallest possible interval is a half step, also called a semitone. So I'll be using the unit of half steps to figure out how large our intervals are. So there are 4 types of triads, and all of them have a root, a third, and a fifth. Now the interval between the root and the third, and then the third and the fifth, dictate what type of triad it is. And there are 2 main intervals that we're going to need while we're building our triads. That is a minor third and a major third. A minor third is 3 half steps, and a major third is 4 half steps. So let's start with our first type of triad, the major triad. Let's choose our root. Let's do C. In a major triad, between the root and the third, we have a major third. So I go to my root, C, and I count up 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. And that lands on E. So from C to E, that is a major third or 4 half steps. And now we want to go from our third up to the fifth. And in a major triad, this interval is a minor third. So we start on the E and we go up 1, 2, 3 notes and we land on G. So that distance from E to G is an interval of a minor third. So now if we play all 3 of those notes together, C, E, and G, we get a major triad. And this is specifically a C major triad. The root note is always the letter attached to it. So we get the root with the letter, and then we get the type with major. And this is a C major triad. It always has the notes C, E, and G in it, and that is the root, third, and fifth. Now let's move on to our second triad type, that is minor. In a minor triad, the interval between the root and the third is a minor third, and then the interval between the third and the fifth is a major third. So if we start on C again as our root, we go up a minor third, that's 1, 2, 3 half steps, we get to E flat. If we play those 2 notes together, they are separated by a minor third. And now in a minor triad, from the third to the fifth, that is a major third. So we start on the E flat and we go up 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps and we land on G. And between the E flat and the G, that is a major third. So we play all 3 of those notes together, C, E flat, G, we get a C minor chord. And now let's move on to our next type of triad, that is a diminished triad. In a diminished triad, the distance from the root to the third is a minor third, and from the third to the fifth is another minor third. So let's start with our same root of C, and let's go up 1, 2, 3 half steps, we land on E flat again. From C to E flat is a minor third, and then we go from E flat up to our fifth, that is 1, 2, 3 half steps above that, and we get our G flat. And between E flat and G flat, that's another minor third. So then we can play all 3 of those notes together, C, E flat, G, and we get a C diminished triad. C is still our root, so C, and then the type is diminished, we get a C diminished triad. And the last type of triad is an augmented triad. So in an augmented triad, the distance from the root to the third is a major third, and then from the third to the fifth is another major third. So let's start on C again as our root. Let's go up a major third, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. We land on E, we play those 2 notes together, that is a major third interval. And then we start on E, and we want to go up to the fifth, and that is another major third. We go 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, that lands us on G sharp. And if we play those 2 notes together, that is E and G sharp. That's another major third. So now we can play all 3 of these notes together, C, E, G sharp, and that is an augmented triad. So now you have the 4 main types of triads. Major triad stacks a major third and a minor third. A minor triad stacks a minor third and a major third. And then a diminished triad stacks a minor third and a minor third. And then an augmented triad stacks a major third and a major third. So another way to think about the triads is instead of thinking about stacked 2 intervals, we can think about them relative to our major triad. So what's the difference between this major triad and a minor triad? Well, the C and the G stay there, but you take the third and you flat it or you move it down 1 note. And now we have a minor triad, and that checks out because we have between the C and an E flat a minor third, and between the E flat and the G a major third. Okay, well, what's the difference between a minor triad and a diminished? Well, we take the fifth and we flat it, and now we have a C diminished triad. And we can confirm this because the distance between the C and the E flat is a minor third, and then E flat to the G flat is a minor third. And now if we go back to our home base of C major, to get to an augmented chord from that, we can move our fifth up a half step, and now we have a C augmented chord. And that goes root to third as a major third, and then third to fifth as a major third. So that's another way to find your triads. If you know the major chord with a specific root, you can alter some of the notes on that chord to get the minor, diminished, and augmented triads. And what's nice about this formula to find triads is that it translates across all 12 of the notes. So let's take another example. Let's try A. And I want to find an A major triad. So A is my root. I go up 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. I find a C sharp. Between A and C sharp is a major third interval. And then from the third or C sharp, I go up 1, 2, 3 half steps and I find an E. And between C sharp and E, I know that is a minor third interval. If I play all three of those notes together, A, C sharp, E, then I have an A major triad. Now I want to find an A minor triad. Well, what do? I take the third and I flat it. Now that gets me an A minor triad. And now I want to find an A diminished triad. Well, I have an A minor triad here. I take the fifth and flat it, and now I get an A diminished. And now I want to find an A augmented triad. So I remember my A major triad, and I take the fifth and I raise it, and now I have an A augmented triad. And this will apply across all 12 notes. So what's nice about these triads is that they follow the circle of thirds. And what's the circle of thirds? Well, in music notation, we use the letters A through G to denote different notes. And the circle of thirds says that if we start on the C as a root, the next note is not going to be a D. It's going to be an E, because with the circle of thirds, you say a letter, you skip a letter, and then you say a letter. So I know that no matter what triad I have, if C is the root, I know that the three letters that consist of those notes are going to be C, E, and G. And maybe the E will be flatted if we're in a C minor, or maybe the G will be flatted as well if it's in a diminished, or the G will be sharped if it's in an augmented chord. But you can know for a fact that no matter what triad you have, the letters are going to follow the circle of thirds. So no matter what, if I have C as my root of a triad, I know that I'm going to have some flavor of an E in it and some flavor of a G in it. Maybe it's a G flat, G sharp, or maybe it's an E flat. And this is super helpful for remembering triads because I know that I have a specific note as my root. Well, I know at least the letter name of the other two notes. And here's the circle of thirds written out. It would be A, skip B, C, skip D, E, skip F, G, skip A, B, skip C, D, skip E, F, skip G, back to A. And that didn't include the sharps and flats, but you can add those in depending on what chord you need. And this applies all across the keyboard. It also applies to the guitar or any other instrument that you might be playing that can build chords. And thank you so much for being here to watch this video. This is the first video of a new Theory Thursday YouTube series that I'm starting. I've been posting Theory Thursday videos on Instagram and TikTok, more short form content over the past year and a half, but I'm starting to get into the YouTube because a lot of people have been requesting for me to dive deeper into these concepts. So I'm starting basically from scratch on YouTube, and I would really appreciate a subscribe. Any YouTube channel under 1,000 subscribers, which I am right now, kind of just like gets neglected by the algorithm. So if you can help me out, help me get to 1,000. I'm hoping that after you watch this video, I will already be at 1,000. And thank you. Happy playing.